1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 72 of Star Wars Reactions. We got a great show for you today. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me is the Grogu to my Mando, the David Motters. David, brother, what's going on?
Hey, just, recording more awesome Star Wars Reactions episodes with you and looking forward to react. I'm ready to react to this one, Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, which premiered yesterday. So excited to cover it with you, my friend.
Same here. I am looking forward to this episode and discussing this. I probably should have reversed that based on our actual heights. You probably should have been Mando. I should have been Grogu.
I liked it. I like it.
It works.
Yeah, I would be Mando or Grogu or, Ahsoka. I'd be any of them. They're all cool.
Yes, they are cool, but none of them are as cool as Chopper.
Oh my gosh, Chop's the best.
I'm currently unpacking my stuff and setting up the new Star Wars Reaction Studios, and I've got my Chopper shrine half set up. It's under construction as we speak.
Yeah, Aaron sent me a picture, and I'm ready to see it. I love how he had the last studio set up. So this is already looking good. What you sent, buddy.
Oh yes, yeah. So once it's done, I will share pictures and let everybody see the glorious new studio. Once it's done, and it'll be great. It's going to be awesome. So we got a great episode to discuss today of The Mandalorian. This was a fantastic episode, even though it was a part of the Book of Boba Fett. Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett was entitled The Return of the Mandalorian, released January 26, 2022, written by Jon Favreau and directed by the talented Bryce Dallas Howard. Fantastic episode. And in this episode, in the Return of the Mandalorian, we see exactly that. The return of Denjarin. After a successful bounty hunt, he locates the new Mandalorian culvert, only to discover that him, the armorer, and the heavy Mandalorian, who's Vizsla, are the only survivors of the Navarro culvert.
Yeah.
They begin to incorporate him back into the group, and the armorer begins training him on the Dark Saber. But unfortunately, peace is not kept because, of course, what does any Vizsla do? Vizslas want power, and Vizsla wants the Dark Saber. So we see a fight between Mando and the heavy what they call the heavy Mando trooper, Vizsla, and they go at it, and Mando eventually wins, but of course it's discovered that he has not kept the oath. He has removed his helmet, and he admits to it, and he is expelled from the order, which is heartbreaking to see. And of course, once he leaves there, he returns to Tatooine, where he goes to see Pelimato, who says she has a ship for him. And of course, it's not the Razor Crest style ship that he was wanting. It is a Naboo starfighter that him and Peli spend the rest of the episode rebuilding and eventually test flying. Of course, the episode ends with the only vestige of the Book of Boba Fett arriving in the form of Fennec Shan, who asked him to help Boba versus the Pikes. And there ended the episode. So let's get into this. Let's get into our initial reactions, and I'm going to go first on this one, David.
No, you go.
What did I just watch? Did I just watch the Book of Boba Fett or a sneak peek of the third season of The Mandalorian? I mean, seriously. I mean, either way, it was a fantastic episode, and I loved it. It was everything about it was great. Seeing Mando back to bounty hunting, seeing him on Tatooine, seeing him with building the new ship, seeing him flying the new ship, and seeing the familiar faces with Pelimato and the droids, and of course seeing the X-wing pilot up there as well as a familiar face. It was just so much fun, and it was such an awesome episode, and it made me want season 3 of Mando even more than I want it already. But I have to say, as much as I enjoyed this, it really didn't advance any of the storyline from the Book of Boba Fett. So I do kind of have some questions as to why we did this. Because there are many other ways they could have brought Mando in to this episode, or into Book of Boba Fett, to involve him in the storyline. That could have been done in 5 to 10 minutes, and they could have told so much more story about what was going on with the Pikes. But they didn't. So I'm a little confused as to why. But I did enjoy the episode. It was fantastic episode. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and we'll go into it more in a little bit. David, what were your initial reactions when you watched this episode?
Yeah, mine piggyback off. I'm glad you went first, because mine really do. They piggyback off yours. How long in advance was this planned? I think probably, Favreau's been writing all this. He's credited as the writer. There is another writer on there, but it's kind of in the smaller credits. But this was a very interesting move to put an episode of Mandalorian season 3. Right? That's what I'm calling. It wasn't really a Book of Boba Fett episode, except for, like you said, Fennec Shan at the end. But to put it in at this time, it does give us, really awesome information on Mandalore, on Mando, on Denjarin, and before he joins up with Boba Fett. And I guess maybe, I think it also could lead into, and it does get me to think about Kathy Kennedy's statement back in December 2020, not December 2021, but December 2020, that there would be a big crossover event for a number of these Star Wars series. And so kind of this insertion of an episode of The Mandalorian seems to point towards that crossover, whenever that may happen, and that they might do this. We might see this more. I don't know, it'd be interesting with Kenobi, or, I start to think about if they end up doing the Rangers of the New Republic, or Ahsoka, right? We know that that's going to be made. I'm curious to see how much they do that. Does Boba Fett show up in Ahsoka? Does, Mando, all those kind of things. So maybe that's kind of what this is pointing to. But like Aaron said, overall, really enjoyed this episode. Seeing a follow-up to the end of Mando season 2, right? We saw him on the ship there. Luke had taken Grogu. In essence, we had questions: where's Mando at this time? Does he have the Dark Saber? Did Bo-Katan fight him for it? How's he getting around? Because he doesn't have the Razor Crest. All that was really cool to see. It was a lot of prequel love. It was really neat to see Pelimato, like you said, her pit droids, seeing Womp Rats, all that. But it just, I'm excited to see where this goes over the next 2 episodes. Wish I could have seen a little bit more Boba in this, maybe Boba and her. But I kind of thought about it, buddy. It's kind of last episode, it was him going to get Chrysanthemum, and here she is going to get Mando. So maybe that's how they're splitting up the work. But excited to see what happens.
Yeah, have to wait and see. This was a great episode. I mean, it was awesome, and the way it opened up was fantastic, with the meat market and seeing the workers, just basically being butchers and butchering the meat and cutting it up, and you got the big slabs of meat hanging there. It was really cool to see. And then you see through the hanging down plastic curtain, you see the outline of somebody walk up and just stand there before walking through the curtain, and you think it's Fett at first, and it ends up being Mando. It is quite, it honestly did take me back for a second, and I'm like, well, they're not wasting any my literally, I thought as soon as he walked through, I'm like, well, they're not wasting any time getting him involved in this. And we see a fantastic fight that we expect from the Mandalorian in this scene, where he is just basically taking on the guards around his the Klatooinian guards around his bounty, and we get to see him like, I'm looking for so and so, and we get to see some of that traditional Mando humor in this too. I'm looking for so and so. I don't know who that is. I've never seen him. And he's like, well, I'm looking at him right now, and he throws the puck on the table, and there's his picture. And he's like, that's not me. Really? Seriously, that's the best thing you got? That's not me. He's like, and then of course we get in traditional Mando form. I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just perfect, and it gave me chills, and it was just so awesome. What did you think of how they opened up this episode, my friend?
Yeah, it surprised me. You see this, and here we go. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is after season 2, and I like you said, he had the tracking fob, then he throws the bounty pug down on there, and I did think about Mithril in the first episode when he puts the bounty pug down in front of him. I think the thing that surprised me though was a couple things. One, the level of violence that the Mandalorian shows towards the Klatooinian guards, as well as the actual bounty, the guy himself, right? Cuts him in half, and then presents his head to that. I think it's an Ishitib, right? It's the character up in the upper levels there of wherever they are out in space, but not used to seeing that level of violence from Mando. The other thing that stuck out too, buddy, was, man, when he cut the side of his leg with that Dark Saber, I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like it hurts. And I had to be reminded that, of course, he's not trained in using something like a lightsaber or dark saber. So I'm like, all right, okay, that's cool, and was really curious to see where they would go with it from there. In fact, as he's moving, and then I'll stop and jump back to you, I kind of felt like someone was going to jump him when he was just kind of hobbling along, Aaron. Being vulnerable, I kind of just felt like someone was going to jump out from multiple sides, but that didn't happen. But really exciting start.
Oh, it really was an exciting start, and I loved this scene too, because especially when he cuts his leg with that dark saber, because it shows the lack of skill he has, and it was perfect in showing and telling that story of how he needs to grow with this weapon. He's incorporating it into his fights, but he really doesn't know how to control it. Which brings us to the next scene, which is so important in his learning how to control. He trades the head of his bounty for information to find the culvert. And he goes in, and we have the armorer, and we have Vizsla there, and they welcome him in. They begin to put together the culvert and everything, and putting the smelter together, and he's just being involved in helping them get things together. Yeah. And there's a couple things that happen in this scene that were pretty cool. One of them caught me off guard, which of course was the Beskar spear, and how the armor questioned, where did you get that? You know, Beskar is not supposed to be made into weapons. It's armor. So he surrenders the spear he got from Ahsoka and allows her to basically melt it down to make something for foundlings. And he wants it made for one foundling in particular, Grogu. Now, we don't see what gets made. We don't get to see it. All we see is it wrapped up in a cloth and tied with a little bow on top. But it's small, of course, because Grogu is small. It leaves you wondering what did they make?
Right.
Yeah, I have an idea of what it might be, and I know I'm probably wrong. But I was thinking it's like, you know, one of the little gear shift balls that he liked playing with.
Well, you notice they made it look like little links, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were coming down. I didn't know if the armorer was going to forge those or move them or connect them or what. But I don't want to take credit for it, but I've heard some people saying maybe like kind of a little bit of a kind of a mesh kind of overlay, you know, even over his little brown cloak and stuff. I don't know. It could be something to protect him, kind of like armor, like a little mesh. I don't know. I do know that, like when you mentioned the little cloth, it's tied in such a way that it looks like a little baby Grogu, ears on each side.
Yes.
Yes. Very little hints and clues as to who it's going to, and like you said, but he said it was going to Grogu anyways. But just the tying of that little cloth bag, they shaped it like Grogu's head. So I don't know, maybe something like that. But you know, I have to mention something. You got me thinking about it. I didn't think about it at all during the show, but I was like, wait a minute, where did he get the spear from? Oh wait, he got it from Ahsoka. Where did Ahsoka get it? Oh wait, she got it from that. Yeah. On where Ahsoka's on. What's the name of the planet? Is it not Trask? But I'm trying to remember where Bo-Katan sent him to go meet Ahsoka on that planet. But that governor, played by Bruce Lee's goddaughter, she battles Ahsoka with that spear, and then I'm like, wait a minute, where did she get that spear? And then I was like, I wonder if she got it from someone like Thrawn, right? Because Ahsoka, remember, asked her, where is Thrawn? So, goodness, you really got me thinking. Like the armorer said, that we don't want any weapons made out of Beskar because then that can penetrate our
armor.
Their armor. So that made a lot of sense. So clearly someone created that who, wanted to be able to battle and probably kill Mandalorians with Beskar on. So yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't know who gave her that spear, but I kind of figured it'd be somebody along the lines of like Gideon, because he was there for the Night of 1,000 Tears and everything in the Destruction of Mandalore. So he would have been involved with the melting down of their armor.
Yeah.
And so I could see him making it and giving it, if she was involved in some way in that, and giving it to her before she went into Thrawn's service.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. But then again, how could that have been? Because Thrawn would have disappeared before the Night of 1,000 Tears.
Yeah. I do like what you're saying, though. Maybe it's more through Moff Gideon, because he would have been there, maybe gathered up armor, after everything was just bombed, and they show that. Maybe that's the connection. But there's Dave Filoni, because he directed that episode. Filoni did of that Ahsoka episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And it was a great episode. So let's keep going here. Now we mentioned Gideon and we mentioned the Night of a Thousand Tears, and we actually got to see that as the stories were told by the armorer in this episode, and it is very visual in the attack as as you see just hundreds of TIE bombers flying over and just bombing, just carpet bombing Mandalore. And we find out that the only reason their particular group escaped is because they weren't on Mandalore. They were on Concordia.
Yeah.
And of course, if you remember the Clone Wars, Concordia was home of
Death Watch.
Death Watch.
Yeah.
So basically, all this time, Mando's been a member of Death Watch.
To a certain degree, right?
What you say is true from a certain point of view.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So we get to see that, and just seeing the bombs just fall, and of course you see the domed city of the capital there on Mandalore, where we've seen many times in Rebels, and we've seen it in Clone Wars, that domed city, and we see it just being bombed by these TIE fighters and eventually just exploding. And of course, millions killed as that happened. And it was really gut-wrenching to see this happen. Then, of course, you see the probe droids flying over, examining the wreckage, as you see a bunch of K2SO type droids. At least that's what they appeared to be to me.
Yes.
Marching through the wreckage, looking and killing survivors. I mean, It is just, oh my gosh, it is just full on the evil, destructive power of the Empire.
Yeah, and they do talk the armor, right? To it's armor and Paz Vizsla. They're talking to Mando at the beginning about how Moff Gideon is responsible for the deaths, or they view him as responsible for the deaths of what? Hundreds of thousands or millions of people. I don't know how many were on Mandalore at the time, but that visual, and like you said, the TIE bombers and those K2, like right, K2SO is, with Alan Tudyk and but I think the K2, it just gave me Terminator, Skynet vibes, right, buddy? As they came walking through, I was like, oh my gosh. Very eerie, but like you said, very heartbreaking too. That final explosion was just so well done, and like you said, the probe droids coming through and flashing, and that would be so intimidating, so scary. But just, I'm glad they gave us a visual of this reference that Moff Gideon gave. What, in season 2?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Or season 1? End of season 1? Season 2? Well, forgive me. But he does reference it. And,
Oh, yeah. It is. And it's one of those, one thing that I just had something and I lost it. Bear with me a second. Oh, my gosh. I just had something and I lost it. Hate it when that happens.
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, we could just say it's due to a disturbance in the Force, right?
Oh, there's quite a disturbance in the Force, all right.
Yeah, but I guess, like I was saying, we were just talking about Moff Gideon, the Night of a Thousand Tears, and they actually show us versus just telling us about it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really, really well done with him. Yeah.
It really was. It really was. Oh, that's it. The during the storytelling, while we're with the armor, we end up getting some history on the Dark Saber,
Right.
which I wanted to talk about, because to me this was pretty important to see, because we have her telling the story of the Dark Saber and how whoever whoever wields it is the leader of Mandalore. And she makes a point to say that it's whoever obtains it the right way. And she's basically in no uncertain terms, she basically in this moment says that Mandalore was lost because Sabine gave Bo-Katan the Dark Saber and she did not earn it in combat.
Right.
In that, because of that, they were cursed, and that caused Mandalore to fall. Right. Which, dude, that was deep.
Yeah. Well, and
which
also,
makes
and
it makes so much more sense too in the end of season 2 of Book of The Mandalorian, when Mando tries to give her the saber, she won't take it.
Yeah.
And she's insistent that it has to be won via combat.
Yeah.
Because I think it may have gotten to her in her head now that same thing, that the sword is cursed because she did not win it in combat.
Right. Mando did, right? Against
Mando did. He beat Gideon and took it from Gideon.
Yeah.
But she did not. Bo-Katan did not. Sabine handed it to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and all this exposition dialogue points to really two very different views between Bo-Katan and the armor, right? Mm-hmm. Again, in this, divided you fall, right, in a country. And, just something I thought about, Buddy, was, could you imagine if there wasn't Death Watch, if you didn't have all these factions, that Mandalorians did work together with this Beskar armor, with their kick butt gauntlets, with their skills, they wouldn't have fallen, most likely, but divided they fell. And the armor does state, like you said, that basically Bo-Katan just wasn't a rightful ruler of it. And it's just a big mess. And so, but yeah, really key history there. And it just really got me thinking, who's right? There's myths, there's, this idea of curses, etc. And again, just giving us some cultural background on Mandalore, which has always been fascinating.
Oh, it really has. And it's what makes Star Wars so awesome is we get that type of mythological background and those stories. And this episode was just so fantastic because we got that story there, and we got to see the connection, and it really, and I loved it because it really connected it not only to the Mandalorian with Bo-Katan, but it takes us straight into Star Wars Rebels, and it makes us, and honestly, it got me thinking, if that's what everybody believed, how did Sabine handle that? Because we know in Rebels she struggled for so long with her actions at the Academy and its effect on Mandalore, at the building weapons that could beat the armor, and the guilt she carried for that. But imagine her having to live with the guilt, knowing that she handed the saber to Bo-Katan, and now everybody says that because that event happened, it cursed the Mandalorian people and led to the destruction of Mandalore. Imagine the weight on her shoulders at that point. I can't. I just can't.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's because I remember seeing that scene and you and I talking about it, covering it on, Rebels Reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, you just went deep there, buddy. Holy crow, what a deep cut.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, oh my gosh,
feel for her. Yeah.
As soon as she said that in this episode, and they were going over that, the first place my mind went was Sabine. And how is she dealing with this? How is she dealing with the thought that, it's gut wrenching to think, because you see how it tore her up. Her academy days tore her up, where with the design of the weapon that she made, and she ended up being able to almost redeem herself per se, to where she could come by destroying the weapon. But man, I can't imagine what she is dealing with at that point.
Now you got me wondering if we're going to see her here in any of these last episodes, or Bo-Katan. Like, I don't know if they want to introduce all that, but boy, you got me thinking, buddy.
I don't think we'll see it if she comes in, if Sabine comes into play, which everybody's saying Sabine is going to be in the Ahsoka show. Fine. There's been no official announcement. I'm not going to buy into rumors or speculation. Right. If she shows up, she shows up. If they announce it, I'll be excited. But I'm not going to get my hopes up for something that's not official. But if they were to bring Sabine into the mix in the storyline, it's not going to be Book of Boba Fett. It will be Mando season 3, because the speculation is nobody knows what it's about, but we expect after what happened in this episode, the only place he can turn to is the only Mandalorians he can turn to is Bo-Katan, and she wants his help to reclaim Mandalore.
Right.
So I can see that happening, and I can see if she's going to come into play. If Sabine is going to come into play anywhere, it would be there.
I like it. I'm tracking with you, brother, and I agree. I like that. I like what you're saying.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we got so much to do, so much more to talk about. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with more of the Return of the Mandalorian. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We are discussing Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, a.k.a. preview of Season 3 of The Mandalorian.
That's right.
Episode titled Return of the Mandalorian, written by Jon Favreau, directed by the fabulous Bryce Dallas Howard. And, of course, we just talked nice long about the scenes, which made up very little of a small portion of the show, with the culvert. Yeah. And of course, we get from there, we get into the fight between Paz Vizsla and Mando over the Dark Saber, because he wants it because it was his family who built it. It is his family who needs it to own it. So he basically challenges Mando, and Mando accepts, and we see this fight go on, and Paz Vizsla, of course, has the upper hand through most of the fight, and really takes it to Mando. But at the end, Mando basically gets him where pretty much he could kill him. He basically has a knife to his throat, and it's the armorer that steps in and basically ends it. And this is the part where we find out where she begins asking questions of Paz and Mando, and where Mando admits that he has broken their vow and has taken his helmet off in front of people. And of course, things don't end well for Mando as he gets expelled from the culvert. What were your thoughts on that scene, David?
Ooh, man, I don't know if we've got 5 hours, but let me just say this. When we see Mandalorian season 1, because we don't see her in season 2, thought we would, but we didn't. She asked those questions, right, of those Mandalorians, in that covert on Navarro, and she's asked, Dinjarin before, have you removed your helmet? And so it's not that she hasn't done this before, but it just, oh man, it hurt when she asked it, because I knew he wasn't going to lie to her. He was going to tell her the truth that he had.
Yeah.
You and I know that he removed it in the episode where they go to the planet, him and Miggs Mayfeld, right? Because they've got to get the data on where that light cruiser is, Moff Gideon. So he has to remove the helmet for it to read his face. If not, they don't get that information. They don't get Grogu back. The place where he removes it, where he didn't have to, but he does, is at the end when Luke is there, Bo-Katan, and others, right? Fennec Shan's there. Who's one of the female, Casca Reeves, right? Isn't it her? I think she's there as well, and so he takes it off voluntarily there. But again, like I said, it hurts when she asks, and then it just, again, where I could go into hours of talking is, this religious zealot type stance that she takes, and how she has one view and thinks that Bo-Katan and all these people are completely wrong, right? We know in season 2 of the Mandalorian, where he meets Bo-Katan and her crew, and they take their helmets off, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then they immediately know he's part of that, and they think that that's just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Part of the way or whatever, children of the way, and so you just start to see again this divide happen, and one of my thoughts is, man, you're down to 3 armor, you're down to him, you're down to Paz Vizsla and you, and just that lack of flexibility, and how, what's the end game here? I mean, you need as many people as you can if you're wanting to, succeed and keep moving on. He continues to bring, Beskar to you, the spear, hands it over easily, does the whole task of taking Grogu to one of his kind. Again, we could go around and around and around. Everyone's got their point of view. Everyone has an opinion. What's right? What's wrong? How strict should you be? Is it too far right? Is it too far left? So it just, I see Favreau and Filoni kind of playing with those ideas, and but I guess maybe ultimately, Aaron, was just this feeling of sadness, because I just think about his relationship with the armor and with Paz Vizsla, who him and a bunch of people saved his life, back on Navarro, and so it's just, I guess, to me, sad to see.
Oh, it is very sad to see, and it's basically the closing of a chapter in his life. These were the people he grew up with. These are the people who raised him, and now he's been basically, kicked into the streets. So it's a sad state of affairs for him, and it's be interesting to see how that affects him as the series goes forward, or whenever season 3 comes out, how it affects him going forward. So we'll have to see. And we got a ton of stuff to cover, so I'm going to push on through this scene, because we have him leaving the culvert. He boards a transport, which is a funny scene in and of itself, because they're making him take off all of his weapons, and he's basically just like pulling weapons out of every little nook and cranny in his armor, which is hysterical. But he ends up flying to Tatooine, surprisingly. At first I thought he was on Navarro, but then it ended up being Tatooine, and we see him meet up with Pelimato, which was awesome to see. And of course, Pelimato brings her own humor to the mix as she's trying to kill. And I assume that was a womp rat she was trying to kill.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. A big one.
Yeah, a big one. And we have a nice little nod to it reminded me kind of Jurassic Park when he's kind of at the beginning when the raptor grabs the worker and is pulling him in the cage and he's holding the cage trying to keep himself out. The Womp Rat grabs Pelly and is pulling her behind the machine, and the droids are just standing there squealing. And of course, Mando shows up and rescues her. And then we find out he's there because she has a ship for him, and he thinks it's a Razor Crest, and it's not. It ends up being one of the Naboo Imperial starfighters, the N1s. Beautiful ship. You know, you remember them from Episode 1, where we first were introduced to him. Anakin flew it as he went to battle the droids and blow up the droid control ship when he was just a wee lad.
Yes.
And it was absolute fun to see one of those ships. I will admit, though, when it was covered up and he's first looking at it before she pulls the sheet off of it, I honestly thought it was Grievous's ship from the end of Episode 3, the one that Obi-Wan flies off.
I wondered if that was it too. I did too. Yeah, that shape.
Yeah, that's what I initially thought it was. Then once she pulled the sheet off, I'm like, wait, no way. Of course, then I'm curious as to how a Nab.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Wow, apparently I start talking and Siri thinks I'm talking to her. Anywho, it got me wondering, how did a Naboo starfighter end up on Tatooine?
Yeah, no clue. Just like the Jawas and all the stuff they can find. Mando's like, where do you get this stuff? It's just amazing where they get it.
No, absolutely. It's very funny to see where they get it. And of course, again, more Pelimato humor. And she's like, yeah, I used to date one. And she's like, yeah, they're furry. I'm like, seriously? Furry is not what I would ever have pegged for a description of a Jawa.
No, it's canon now. Apparently they're furry under there.
Apparently. But yeah, the whole scene was great, and seeing them put together the ship, and I love how they basically emptied. They basically the paint job on that thing is just like the Razor Crest. It's got that high chrome polish, and then all the yellow paint that you normally think of when you see one of these ships. It's basically been scraped off, and there's a few yellow strips here and there, just kind of like there were on the Razor Crest. So it kind of suited them, and of course they souped it up. It's not just a regular N1 starfighter anymore. It's got this souped up engine in it, and it goes super fast, and it's got a mega turbo in there, and it's as what Mando describes it perfectly in a nod to Episode 1. It's Wizard.
Yes, yeah.
It's just when he said that, I laughed out loud. I will admit, I laughed out loud. My dogs just stared at me because I was home alone laughing out loud, but I did. It was great. What did you think of this whole sequence arriving on Tatooine and dealing with this Naboo starfighter, Dave?
Yeah, it's very similar thoughts to you in terms of what I first thought it was. I have to admit, I even at one point I thought, wait, is that Grievous's ship? And then the next thing I thought was, wait, is that a pod racer she's giving him? I'm like, what is that? Like, how are you going to do that? And then sure enough, they pull it off, and there's an N1 Naboo starfighter, which I absolutely loved in Episode 1, designed by Doug Chang. Of course, Doug Chang is working on this series like he did Mando. I love seeing it. I felt for a little bit it went a little too long, the time they spent building this, but then they did a little bit of time-lapse photography, and it was cool, and seeing them work together, and I really do like the friendship between Mando and Pelimato, and seeing R5 there, the pit droids, seeing Seeing the Jawas come, and then she's talking Jawa with him. I'm just
Oh my
like
gosh.
dying. And that's the humor that Lucas, had in the original trilogy, and that was fun to see. When he takes the flight and he goes up into outer space, and of course he sees the Rhodian kid again. Apparently he was leaving. Landed with maybe it was time for him to go, but Mando's up there and nodded to him. But then little trivia. I think everyone who looked at the end credits was like, wait, who? We knew the one guy because he was there with Trapper Wolf before. He was trying to recruit Cara Dune, but the other guy, I don't know if people know who that was, but that was it Max Lloyd Jones? Am I messing up the name? He's the body double for Luke Skywalker in the season finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian. That's him. You actually get to see his face.
That's why he looked familiar.
Exactly, because we've seen him in the Mandalorian, Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian behind the scenes. Remember, we had that one episode on how they did that, and that's him. I might be messing up his name, but I know that's him, and obviously, Filoni and Favreau wanted to give him some screen time, so that was really cool. But I love how he blasted away from those guys, and then came back and landed, like you said, and then we see Fennec come and like you said earlier, set the stage. The one little part of the Book of Boba Fett was her, and she's coming to recruit him while Boba's, recruiting Black Chrysanthemum.
Very true. Very true. You there?
I'm here, buddy.
I thought you were still going. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No. And I guess I should have just said no. I love this scene and felt it went a little bit long, but just overall loved. Oh, I meant to say this. Forgive me. See, here you are. You already know that I had a little bit more. It was she points him towards Beggar's Canyon, and to see him fly through where we saw again some of episode 1, right? Anakin flying through Beggar's Canyon and stuff like that, and the pod race. That was really neat to see. Mando shoot through there before he shot up into space and what I just mentioned. So thank you for giving me the assist there, my friend.
No problem. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah, it was a great scene. And once they get it together, it did go a little long, in my opinion, too. But it was still fun to see them put it together. And of course, going that long, open them up to have the comedy in there with the Jawas and everything. But once we get it done, it's finished, he goes test flying it. And of course, as you mentioned, we get he's zipping around the civilian transport super fast and going all around everything. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's got 2 X-Wings on his tail for going too fast in a around a public transport, which was quite humorous. And of course, he hit that turbo and he went zooming off, and it was just a great way to end the episode. And of course, it ends with Fennec Shand showing up and asking him to do a job by helping Boba Fett. And Mando, of course, is like, no, for him, it's on the, I'll just do it. But he makes a statement. He goes, but I have something I got someone I need to go see first. And it gives you the impression that, he's going to see Grogu. He wants to go see Grogu before he commits to doing the work with Boba, which is, interesting to see. It kind of sets us up for what's coming in Mando 3, I would think. We know he's going to end up going to see Grogu, whether season makes me wonder if season 3, and this is what's got me thinking at this point. Because, this was episode 5. There's technically, from what I understand, there's 7 episodes in this series, Book of Boba Fett. So we got 2 episodes left. It's going to be, in my opinion, this is going to be hard to wrap up in 2 episodes. I'm sure they'll find a way to do it, but they will. But it's got me wondering if instead of having the big, because he's going to, it's got me wondering if either season 3 of the Mandalorian is going to take place in between this episode and the next episode of Book of Boba Fett. In other words, they're going to cram a whole season into that little window where he goes and sees Grogu.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Or are we not going to have resolution in this series? In other words, by the end of episode 7, the lines have been drawn, the teams are together, and the fight's not going to be a part of this series. The fight will be a part of Mando season 3.
Or a second season of Book of Boba Fett.
Or a second, yeah.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Well, there hasn't been any word on that. From what I understand, this was a one-shot deal.
Well, that's what I heard too, but I think some of the grumblings is that, I think because it's done really well, that they were looking at another season, not just one season of it. But I'm with you. I wondered if, just like you said, if in the next episode, chapter 6, right, we see Fennec say, "How did your visit go?" And he's like, "Yeah, I went and saw my little friend, and I'm back now." Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? So they don't show Grogu at all during, chapter 6 or chapter 7. Yeah. I'm with you on that. They could really do that and set the stage and keep people's interest. Oh, hey, we know Grogu's coming back in season 3, So yeah. I could imagine that happening, because it just to use a 6th episode or chapter 6 and show that's not about Book of Boba Fett and him dealing with the Pikes, unless he would bring Grogu with him or bring Luke to help, which would be kind of weird because, the whole scene in Return of the Jedi. But again, who knows? But I tend to lean more towards what you said, that they'll show his visit to Grogu, as part of season 3 or a good chunk of it or whatever. Mm-hmm. I tend that way. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see either way. So, all right. Well, anything else from the talking points that we haven't touched on that you want to discuss before we close everything out?
No, I guess I just, I was hinting at it there a little bit, would we ever see Mando get some training from Luke when he goes to visit baby Grogu? I don't know. Just stuff to think about. Just a question out there. I don't have any confirmation of that. I'll just stop speculating. It's more not speculation, just hope. So,
rebellions are built on hope.
Right. That's what I just, some things I would love to see. But no, that's those are the things that I wanted to cover with you, on this episode.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your final thoughts, brother?
Yeah. I didn't really know, going into this chapter, that Aaron and I would be covering an episode of The Mandalorian. I thought we wouldn't be doing that until season 3 came out. So this was a really nice surprise. I liked it. I'm excited to see Grogu again and see, maybe what Luke has done with his training. So it's kind of wetting my whistle or getting me excited for that. And at the same time, I'm cautiously optimistic with some of my hopes there. But again, I enjoyed all the prequel love in this episode. I really liked where they spent time off of Tatooine. Kind of like a ringed, right? A ringed type of a planet, not a planet, but just space station almost, right, buddy? They were up there on that. That was really cool to see that. I'll go back to it, and Aaron and I have talked about it quite a bit this episode. It's just the armor's exposition was really helpful. I had the subtitles on the whole time. Was reading everything she was saying, and that was really helpful in fleshing out that history of Mandalore. Aaron even helped me even more with bringing up the stuff about Sabine. It's like, holy mackerel, just really cool. And I love thinking about Rebels and talking Rebels with Aaron and all of our listeners. So that was really cool to see that. Again, I'd say it's pretty wild to see the Night of a Thousand Tears, or at least a part of it. Really cool. And then seeing those TIE bombers. And like I mentioned a bit ago, and even in our last episode 5, I couldn't wait to see what the last 3 episodes. Well, now I'm saying I can't wait to see what these last 2 episodes bring. And I think we're going to see, a big battle with the Pikes, and possibly Boba riding a Rancor into that battle. Possibly. I hope. More hope.
More hope. And rebellions are built on hope, That's how it goes. So, but yeah, it was really good. My final thoughts are a little torn. This was there's no arguing. This flat out was a fantastic episode, incredible episode of The Mandalorian. Not so much Book of Boba Fett. The storytelling was fantastic. The effects were fantastic. The nods to the other movies and other shows, it was just fantastic. The depth of some of the exposition, as you mentioned, was just incredible. The way it got you thinking, and it was just great. This was 100%. I would almost, somebody actually told me this episode was 100% fan service, and I can see that. I gotta say, Bryce Dallas Howard did an absolutely incredible job with this episode. Kathleen Kennedy, please give this woman a movie. She deserves it. Her episodes of The Mandalorian have been golden. Give her an opportunity. Give her a movie to direct. It was great. But overall, I loved this episode. I really did. It was fantastic. Which brings us to probably the most difficult part of the show, which is going to be grading it. As you know, we'd grade all of the shows we review, like if we were in school, A, B, C, D, or F, with a grade. And this I told David, I told you before we started recording, and I'm going to tell our listeners as well, I really struggled with grading this show. It was as an episode of The Mandalorian, this was an easy A. Easy A. But as a episode of the Book of Boba Fett, it was a D. There was no connection to the Book of Boba Fett in this, other than Fennec showing up at the end. I mean, I can't in good conscience, say this was, a episode of the Book of Boba Fett when we didn't see Boba Fett. I can understand watching an episode of the Clone Wars and not seeing Obi-Wan or Anakin, because if you didn't see Obi-Wan, you saw Anakin. If you didn't see Anakin, you saw Ahsoka. And if you didn't see Ahsoka, you saw Rex and the clones. So that's easy. But this, your title character, who is supposed to be building an army to take on the Pikes, doesn't even make an appearance. And you're focusing on a character solely from a different show for the whole 45 minutes till you bring in the co-star of said show in the last 2 minutes of the episode. No. As an episode of The Mandalorian, easy A. As an episode of the Boba Fett, it's the lowest grade I've ever given on anything I've ever reviewed. And it would be a D. I just can't. I'm still struggling with this. Yeah. I'm still struggling with it. David, how would you grade it?
Well, I will first say to everybody, Aaron's Twitter is TAHarris121079. So if you want to, you can agree. And email is Aaron@StarWarsReactions.com. So I just had to do it, buddy. Um, you know, I tell you, I've been doing this a long time with Aaron, and he's always really sharp, on this and with grading and defending. And Aaron's always been fair on all this stuff. And like I said, I've been recording with him for years, and his argument here, people, is really, really strong. I don't really have an argument against it. It isn't an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. It is, I've heard some people saying the Mandalorian episode 2.5, or Aaron and I've said it. This is kind of a first episode of Mandalorian season 3, which again, I love the Mandalorian. But as Aaron said, yeah, it doesn't have even Boba in it. I would have felt a little bit better if it was him and Fennec showing up there at Pelimato's place. I wanted to see that. I thought that'd be really cool to have both there walking in or hopping over the top like they did. Apparently security at Peli's place doesn't work. But I guess, I just was thinking an A. I'm like, I really like this. But then as Aaron made his argument, I'm like, yeah, this is an A for The Mandalorian. It's not really an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So I would definitely rate it lower. I think maybe I'll do a C for a Book of Boba Fett, because I do get that Favreau wanted to show some backstory on Mando and him being prepped, and where did he get his ship, and how does he have a Dark Saber? How does he have all this stuff, and he can help, Boba Fett. So I'll be nice. I'll throw a little bone out there, and Aaron did an AD. I'll do an AC. So don't send me any mean texts. Just send them to Aaron or tweets. Forgive me.
Oh my gosh, we just graded our show ACDC. No, ACAD. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Sorry. Anyway. Oh, perfect. Let us know what you think. Of course, as I said, if you want to roast me on my grade, I will take it. Send me of course, you can hit me up on Twitter, like David said, TA Harris 121079, or Aaron at Aaron at Star Wars Reactions. Man, I'm all thrown off.
You didn't
now.
Want to tell people. That's why
I'm all thrown off now.
Yeah.
Aaron at StarWarsReactions.com. And of course, David, you have a psychology corner for us this week.
Oh, definitely.
Right. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, we've just been trying to build on the last couple of episodes in terms of, I guess, technically really building on the last few psychology corners within the last 2 episodes of our podcast. In the last episode, I talked about New Year's resolutions and the main problem involved with them, which is that they're based on motivation, and motivation's fickle. But then I did a little bit of a tease for the stages of change theory. And I wanted to introduce this in January for our listeners, because again, it's kind of a month where we do talk about change and a new start. It is something that we've created as humans. Is anything different from December 31st to January 1st? I don't know. The weather doesn't really care what day it is. The wind doesn't, birds don't. But as humans, we kind of say, well, it's a change. It's new. It's a new year. But in the last episode, I had talked about the 6 different stages of change within the stages of change theory. And what I want to do is go through each one, give a little bit more detail each episode of Star Wars Reactions, because I'd like to consistently, and Aaron knows this, and all of you listening do that, I'd like to consistently give, some good psychology corners. Some episodes I might not be able to do them, but by doing this, it really sets the stage to have it be consistent here for a while. So the first stage, and we'll talk about it in the stages of change theory, is called pre-contemplation. And I had mentioned in that last episode that in pre-contemplation, the person is failing to recognize that there's even a need. They're not even thinking about change. All right. They're not even in contemplation. I'll cover that next episode. But let me give a little bit more background on the pre-contemplation stage. And again, I guess, Aaron, what I would encourage our listeners to think about is not a New Year's resolution, but do they want to start to exercise? Do they want to stop smoking? Do they want to eat better? Do they want to decrease anger? Any type of behavioral change, I'd really love for them to think about what stage they're in, because then it can start to set the stage for them to move forward. I do this all the time with my clients in my office. If there's certain things that the physicians I work with every day want to see changed behaviorally. They want their clients to stop smoking. They want them to eat better. When I bring up some of these things, a number of clients they're not even thinking about what stop smoking. I haven't thought about that. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to stop, or I don't want to start eating better. Kind of, each time that I cover one of these stages, there's a kind of a saying that goes with that stage. This one is, I don't need to change, right? Or it can be that, they're not even thinking about it. But if they are, it's basically change is not wanted. It's not needed. They don't see it as needed. Or that person doesn't see it as possible. Okay. A little bit more of a description for this stage is that that person has no intention now or in the future to change their behavior, right? Some examples of things that people say in this stage are, I have no intention of taking up a sport or going running, right? Again, there's also another aspect to this. People can be unaware or lack the information they need regarding the health benefits of changing their behavior, or taking up exercise or stopping, like I said, certain behaviors. Those kind of things can help. But in pre-contemplation, they're not even thinking about these things. But again, just the first kind of starting point here for people is to think about, are they there? Are there things they need to change that they're not even thinking about? And I hope that this conversation gets them to think about it a little bit, that this Psychology Corner does it. As I move forward and cover the other stages, it'll really start to create a more full picture. And then, Aaron, what we'll have is informed listeners who are good psychologists who are not just going to rely on motivation, but they'll have the background and knowledge to know, where am I in terms of the stages of change, and let me progress and move forward through them and get the desired change that lasts, that sticks, and it's not based on a New Year's resolution and motivation. So there's a first start to it, buddy. And so again, we'll be back with more. We'll be back with the second stage, which is contemplation. All right, buddy?
Very good. Very good. Perfect. All right, David. And of course, if people have questions about your Psychology Corner or about Star Wars, or want to talk to you about how bad of a grade I gave the show, how would they go about talking to you about that?
That's all right, buddy. 3 ways. First one is at David_Modders. That's Twitter, right? It is MODDERS. There's an S at the end. The other one is the email for a more longer form question or comment from anybody if they want to. That is David at StarWarsReactions.com. And then the last one, the newest one for me, is on Instagram, and that is just, if people just simply look up David Modders. Just really simple, really straightforward. So those are 3 ways they can contact me, buddy.
Very cool. Very cool. It's awesome. Awesome. And remember, of course, you can always let us know what you think about anything and everything. You can hit us up on any of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and our new Pinterest at SW Reactions, Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, or email show at Star Wars Reactions. David, it's the most wonderful time of the show.
Well, I'm ready, I think.
All right. Well, we got a new Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. And since Pelimato was talking about Jawas and we found out they were furry, I figured this joke was absolutely perfect for this episode. And David, here it goes. What do Jawas have that no other creatures in the galaxy have?
Oh boy. All right, Aaron. What do Jawas have that no other creatures in the galaxy have?
Baby Jawas. According to Pelly, they're a little furry.
Now you got me choking here. Oh my God. These are just getting worse by the episode.
Oh, love it, love it, love it. All right. David, my friend, this has been a blast as always.
Oh man, I'm so glad we're back recording, and we always have fun with this, and it was great to get this episode, in the can, and hopefully people enjoy it.
Absolutely. We appreciate everybody listening in. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are the best. We pray for y'all and wish y'all the best out of life. Stay healthy, stay safe, and remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.